Hi everyone, I'm Katie. Thank you very much for coming to listen to me speak today. I'm going to be sharing my perspective on why doing difficult things is good for you and good for your team. Wherever you are on your career journey, if you're just starting out like me, or maybe you're in a senior position or a team lead, hopefully there's going to be something useful and interesting in here for you. So, to start with, a bit about who I am. So, I'm a junior software engineer with the Bennett Institute for Applied Data Science at the University of Oxford. I'm a career switcher, have a bit of an atypical background maybe for a software engineer. So I have a biomedical sciences degree and I spent about 10 years in international medical communications and medical education. So that was working with healthcare experts around the world to make things like e-learning resources and Congress presentations to help educate healthcare professionals. So I've been in my current role for just over a year, and I work primarily with Django and Python, but recently I've also been dipping back into JavaScript and React. So, why am I here? Well, back in January, I picked up this ticket to do a bit of work on one of our services that we look after in my team called Open Code Lists. And before we go any further, I do want to do a bit of audience participation, if that's okay. So if you could raise a hand for me if you know what observability is. Okay, thank you. And if you could raise a hand for me if you know what OpenTelemetry is. Nice, okay, thank you. And final one, could you raise a hand if you know what Honeycomb is? Okay, cool, thank you very much. So for anybody who didn't raise a hand just now, you're in exactly the same boat that I was in when I picked up this ticket. I didn't know anything about any of those things. And so for all of the people who didn't raise a hand, and for the people who did, but maybe weren't telling the whole truth, observability is where we just try and monitor the internal state of our system by looking at the external outputs of it. And OpenTelemetry is an open source framework that helps us do that. So it gives us a bunch of tools that help us instrument our code. So that just means make it emit some data. And then we can collect that and we can export it. And we can export it to a platform where we can visualize it and analyze it and query it. And for us, that platform is called Honeycomb. So why were we even doing this work? Well, as the ticket says, we wanted to add a bit of data about our users, so their username, to our telemetry spans to help us basically better support them so we could identify who they are and go and give them a bit more tailored support, hopefully. And going into this ticket, I thought it was going to take me about 1 to 2 days of learning about what observability was and OpenTelemetry and Honeycomb, and it actually took me 3 weeks to complete this work. And here is why. So this is something that I've framed as a learning iceberg. So on the top, above the surface, is everything that I thought I was going to learn when I went into this ticket. And below the surface are all the additional things that I learned on top of those things in order to complete this work. And you can see it's a pretty long list, and it's not just technical things like PyTest fixtures or Django middleware processing or environment variables. It's also things like how to work with my team and how to ask for help and how and when we should be writing documentation, perhaps what you might call the more social aspects of a role. And you know, it's a long list, and I won't deny it was really challenging to learn all of these things. And when you're a junior, you don't know what you don't know. So the boundaries of your knowledge are really easy to underestimate for yourself, but also for other people on your team. And you know, when things break or things go wrong, you don't necessarily know where or why. And even if you do find a bug, actually fixing it is another challenge in and of itself altogether. But hopefully what this shows you is that doing difficult things is also really rewarding because you learn so much more than you ever thought you would do at the start. And then, when you complete the work, you also get this enormous sense of accomplishment because you've learned all these things. So, what did we actually achieve? Well, we can now query our telemetry data by the logged-in user. Woo! And if the user logs in and makes a request, we can see who they are, and we can go and help them if we need to. There was also a note on the ticket, I don't know if anyone saw that, about documenting how I did this in our code base. And I don't have a picture, you'll just have to trust me that I did do it. But if you really want to be sure, you can go to our GitHub, because at the Bennett, we do all our stuff in the open, so you can go and double check my work. But the real reason that I wanted to show this slide is because the output of the work looks so small. It looks like I didn't really do much. You can see right at the bottom that there weren't many lines of code added, not many removed, not many commits or files changed. And I feel like this happens a lot in engineering for me, and maybe it happens in other disciplines, especially when you're just starting out. You feel like the output of your work is so small in comparison to all of the time and the effort that you put into actually delivering the thing. And okay. Maybe there are other people who feel that too then. But what I want to say was I really strongly encourage you not to measure the value of your work by the volume of the output, because it's far, far greater than that. Think back to the below the surface of the iceberg and all of those things listed there. That's also the value. Okay, so this was a really messy, non-linear journey, but I did actually manage to glean some learnings, and the first ones we're going to go through are some learnings for juniors, which I'm hoping are going to be helpful. So, first things first, please do not wait until you are so stuck in a struggle that you've forgotten how you even got there and everything is just on fire around you. Ask for help early and ask for help often. I think, when I'm working through something and I hit a problem that I need to overcome, I'll set myself a 1 hour time limit and I'll say, right, I'll give it a really good crack and I'll go for it. And if I hit 1 hour and I'm still clueless, then I will go and ask for some help. And asking for help doesn't have to be give me the answer. It can just be, here's what I've done and where I've been heading. Can you just nudge me in the right direction? I think there's definitely value in struggling through something and giving it a go, but you don't want to become defeated by it, so time box it. Second key learning is communicating problems effectively. So when I'm asking for help, I'll try and use these 3 fundamental building blocks up here. So I'll give the person some context, and I'll say what I've tried so far. I'll say why I've tried those things to try and give an impression of my understanding in case there's some misconceptions there that need to be addressed. And then I'll say what happened when I tried the things that I tried. And then I'll finish by asking, or trying to ask, really specific focus questions about what exactly I want the person's help with, because you want to try and help the other person help you as much as you can. I think you'll get a lot further, a lot quicker, if you use some structure when you ask for help, rather than just saying, I've got this error in my terminal and I don't know why, for example. Okay, third key learning is pairing doesn't have to be synchronous. And when I demoed this talk for a bunch of non-tech friends, they were like, Katie, what the hell's pairing? So in case anyone else feels similar, what I mean by pairing is pair programming, which I've done a lot of at the Bennett. And that just means working together with another person on the same piece of work at the same time. And my handy wiki definition says that's usually done in person, but actually my team work fully remotely. So that's done over Google Meet with something like VS Code Live Share, for example. So some of the best pairing that I did was actually asynchronous. So we tracked progress in like shared Google Docs, and I got draft PR reviews when people had time to do that for me. And I also just DM'd in Slack. I have a note here that says bonus points if you throw your messages and your questions into your team channel. So Initially, I really struggled with this because it's a public forum, and that's quite tricky. But I had a gentle prod from my line manager and my mentor, who said it's good for everyone else if you do that, and they were right. And that's for several reasons. So if you put your messages into your team channel, you're going to wait less time to get an answer because there's more eyes on your question. You're going to get multiple resources potentially and opinions. You're not pressuring one person to give you an answer or relying on that one person. And also, you're giving everybody in your team an opportunity to learn alongside you or consolidate their knowledge or perhaps have a misunderstanding addressed by seeing what you're getting an answer to. Also, it can be helpful for people to just keep an eye on where you're up to. Maybe your line manager would be interested in that. And for you, you can then ask a question, go work on something else, and then just come back to it when you have an answer. So you keep some momentum going, which I think is really important if you're doing something a bit challenging. Okay, fourth key learning for juniors is you really are benefiting your whole team when you pick up difficult, challenging, new things. Everybody gets a chance to learn along with you or strengthen their own understanding when you're doing something new. Undoubtedly, you're going to be asking questions, and they might spark really important discussions that otherwise might never have happened if you hadn't picked up this work. You also, just by nature of you doing the work, might lead to improvements in previously unclear documentation or maybe wonky processes. And fifth and final key learning for the juniors is that it really does get easier over time. I think it can feel quite daunting, and certainly for me, and you can often feel like there's this big ball of confusion at the start when you don't know so many things. But as you move through it, you build a base of knowledge, you get better at debugging, you get better at articulating problem and asking for help, and you also become more confident in tackling the next thing. I found a quote that I thought spoke to this, and essentially, I think it says that the challenges are never going to go away. We're always going to have to face them, whether they're new or the existing same ones. But the more that we do them, the more that we read through them, the better we become at tackling them. And I think that is true. So, we've gone through a lot of stuff. This QR code will take you to my LinkedIn page if you want to say hi. You'll see that cropping up. So, summary of learnings for juniors. Ask for help early and often. Time box the struggle. Communicate your problems effectively. Think of those 3 fundamental building blocks. Working together doesn't have to be synchronous. Ask those questions in your team channels. You really are benefiting your whole team when you do difficult things. And it really does get easier the more that you do them. You become more capable each time. All right, so we've been through some learnings for my fellow juniors. Now we're going to go through some learnings for seniors. And these are things that the people in my team did for me that were enormously helpful and made a really big difference when I was doing this piece of work. So hopefully something for people to take away. All right. First things first, invest your time. Whether that is 15 minutes to just validate a plan or an approach, bounce something off someone, or maybe like an hour or 2 explaining a framework, or perhaps walking someone through an example implementation. It really does pay dividends. When I was doing this piece of work, my colleague Simon, I can't see you, but I know you're here somewhere, he spent about, I think it was like an hour and a half initially, walking me through what observability was, what OpenTelemetry was, what Honeycomb was, and then he went and showed me all these examples of where we implemented these things in other code bases for other services that we looked after. And that was so enormously helpful, because then when I came to actually do the work, I had all this context stored, and I could just sort of hit the ground running, rather than having to go and dig through documentation and try and decipher what's relevant, what's not, and that would have taken me like forever. So thank you, Simon. And it is really, really helpful to do that for your juniors. Second thing, provide context when you're explaining things. Don't just say what the thing is. Please never say just Google it yourself. Explain why and explain how. I mentioned before that when you're a junior, you don't know what you don't know. And it's really, really easy to underestimate the boundaries of somebody's knowledge. So explaining why and explaining how helps to plug those gaps and give someone a more comprehensive understanding of what you're trying to teach them. Third key learning, and something it's probably the most important one for me, role model that it's okay to not know and that it's okay to forget the answer. Admit when you don't know something. I feel like in tech, and also in my previous career, you have to have so much specific and sometimes like niche knowledge just to complete one task or one individual unit of work. And then the next day, you have to bin it off and grab a whole new bunch of knowledge, which could also be super niche. And it's just impossible to hold all of that information in your head as you're going through your career. So normalize not knowing and forgetting. Importantly, help find the answer together when you don't know. This way, your junior learns where to look for the answer and how to find the answer for themselves, and they can go and do that for themselves in future. I really, really want to stress, not knowing the answer isn't important. The skill of finding the answer and knowing how to do that is, so focus on that. Fourth key learning, give specific constructive feedback, ideally with like concrete examples if you can. Saying something like, Katie did a really rubbish job, or Katie did a great job, that it's good, but it's not very useful. If you say something like, Katie did an okay job overall, but when she did example thing here, she would have benefited from doing example thing here instead, because example reasons. Okay, great. Now I have something tangible where I can see where I went wrong, I can see what I need to do next time, and I can go and change my behavior. That's way better. Okay, fifth key learning, signpost to helpful resources and links. So this gives the person that you're teaching an opportunity to then go away and reflect and learn and consolidate at their own pace. It also benefits both parties because they are much less likely to come back and ask you the exact same question if you've given them a link to a resource where they can go and see that for themselves. You're also, importantly, catering to different learning styles. So not everybody is going to absorb the thing that you say in the moment that you tell them. And if you give them a link to a resource, they can then go and find a way to learn that thing in the way that suits them best. So they might want to read through it 3 times over, or they might want to find a YouTube video, or they're like me, they might want a visual representation of what the thing is to help them digest it. So giving links to resources will help a person do that. Final key learning for the seniors is providing encouragement and reassurance. When the tough parts of a task feel relentless and unending, and the wins feel minuscule and short-lived, having somebody say, I see the effort that you're putting in, it's going to be worth it, keep going, or even just saying, like, this is a normal part of being an engineer, it's not just you, it's not just because you're junior. That makes such a big difference, providing that validation. So if you're able to and you have the opportunity, please try and provide that for your juniors. Okay, again, been through a lot of things. So to summarize, invest your time, whether that's 15 minutes or 2 hours. Provide some context, explain why, explain how. Role model that it's okay to not know the answer and it's okay to forget. Give specific, constructive feedback. Signpost to helpful resources where you can. Help someone go and learn in the way that suits them best. And give encouragement and reassurance and validation wherever you can. Okay, so what do I want you to take away from today? Juniors, go and do the difficult things. You may not feel like you have the knowledge or the skill or the experience, you probably won't be the fastest, but if you've got a supportive team around you and you're willing to learn, you have everything that you need right there. And seniors, please take the time to invest in your juniors. It really will pay dividends. All right, thank you everyone for listening, and extra special thank you to my incredible team who consistently demonstrate all the behaviours that I've shared with you today as seniors. And without them, I wouldn't have been able to give this presentation full of these learnings for you. So thank you, you're all superstars.
Thanks, Katie. A lot to reflect on for some of us who maybe were juniors in the 1880s and 1980s.
Wow.
And we've got time for a few questions. Just show our hands and I'll pass the mic across if anyone's got anything. I'll start with Eli at the front.
Have you gone to any meetups? And if so, have you found them useful?
Yeah, I've gone to several. So I've been to Her Plus Data, Manchester, which is a great one, and I know you've been there too. Also PyData Manchester, get involved with that. I would say outside of work, it's really nice to meet other engineers working on different things. You learn a lot, and there is also people to sort of trade stories with, which has also been really helpful. So yeah, I would recommend those two, which I've tried.
Hi, Katie. You were saying about having context explained to you and to learn the how and why, but I'm guessing that can also then, you now discover there's another iceberg under the iceberg.
Yeah.
How can seniors help manage that when they're explaining new context, which might spiral off into piles of it?
I think, so if I think back to when people have done that for me, Simon, who I mentioned, and also my buddy Ian, they're really good at narrowing the context down to just what I need to know to complete the task. It is mainly on the other people, but I've never felt overwhelmed when anyone's explained anything to me. But I think it's, trying to keep it relevant and specific enough, and saying, right now, in this moment, to complete this task, these are the bits that we need to know. And you can sort of worry about the other bits later, or go and learn those later, but just focus on this bit for now, is what I'd say. Is that helpful?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, thanks so much for reminding us that building software is a very social activity. You, obviously, when you said what seniors should not say, just Google it, I definitely agree with that. But whether also times where you just Googled stuff yourself and found it helpful, and where or in which situations could a senior maybe be right in saying just Google it in a kind way?
Yeah, that's fair. I guess it would be appropriate in some situations. I can't think of an instance off the top of my head, which is surprising because I feel like I Google it every day.
We all do.
Yeah, we're all winging it.
Is that what being a senior is? It's just better Googling.
We're better at winging it.
Yeah, I'm really sorry. I can't think of a specific example, but there definitely would be. And I think, I don't want to say like it's okay to tell someone that. If you know the answer, I think it is genuinely nicer to explain it to someone. Yeah. And also, then that tells you, like, if you do have a gap in your knowledge, if you can't explain it, or they haven't understood it, perhaps. And it challenges you to explain it in a different way that makes sure that they can. So yeah, I'd say, like, try and avoid it, even though we all do Google everything a lot.
We'll take one final question.
What do you wish you knew before?
Everything. Yeah, probably everything. It was really hard, like, learning all those things, and because I'm a junior, that's like every single week, day in, day out. I'm working on something at the moment that is like exactly similar, and I'm going through the same process, and that's really tough. And I think coming from a position in my previous career where I was really senior, and everybody came to me for the answers, and I could just like pick up a flaming pile of shit. Sorry. Sorry. Sorry, I caught myself before I said that fully. Picking up a flaming dumpster fire of work, and then just someone going, can you just fix this? And then turning it around in like 2 days and being like, here's your beautifully packaged project. And I just can't do that here. And initially I felt like pretty useless. And that is hard. So I always want to feel like I have all the answers and I know what I'm doing. And I think what I would like to have is sort of like accepting that for myself. I should probably just listen to my own presentation back. I don't know if that ever gets any easier over time. But yeah, I'd like to have all the answers, if that's possible.
Well, thanks for a wonderful talk. Clearly, a lot of prep went into it, and it was really slick and refined.
Oh, thank you.
Big hand for Katie.
Thank you.
Truly excellent.